In part 2 of shooting, we're allocating hits.
Alright, so I've gone through the targets that are in range, I've established line of sight, and decided if they are concealed or not. Now it's time to declare who I want to fire at. Your panzers are all in range, and these ones are in line of sight, so I will shoot at them. I have 2 Sherman M4s, so they'll all shoot at the one over there in the open.
Could you have each tank shoot at a different target, or do they all have to pick the same unit?
I could pick a different target for each one, but in most cases there's no need. If I get lots of hits, we'll share them out to nearby tanks in the unit when we get to hit allocation.
Okay, so what next?
I rotate the weapons on my models to aim at the enemy. Fortunately for me, my Shermans have a rotating turret, so they easily turn and aim at my enemies. But bear in mind that some teams have a limited field of fire. They may not have a rotating turret, and therefore they can only shoot at an enemy that is directly in front of them.
Okay, so you've turned all that firepower toward my forces, and you're ready to fire. What are you going to do now?
Well, what happens next is I roll for hits. The number of dice I will roll when shooting is dictated by the rate of fire statistic on the unit card. This will vary if you've moved on this turn or if you've stayed still. This M4 Sherman didn't move on the movement phase, so I can use my halted rate of fire. This means I roll 2 dice. My other M4 did move, so I'll have to use the moving rate of fire, which for this unit is the same as the halted rate of fire, but for a lot of units this isn't the case. However, the stabilizer rule on the M4 Sherman 75mm guns means that I need to add a +1 score to the score I need to hit this tank on, since it moved.
Okay, so what are you aiming to get when you roll your dice?
Well, when you roll your dice, you're looking to match or beat your enemy's is hit on number, which is at the top right of their unit card. The reason it is on the enemy's card is because hits are based on how good a unit is at not presenting itself as a target, as opposed to how good another unit is at shooting. I'm aiming at your Panzer IVs, so I'm trying to roll 4 or more.
In some instances that number can change though, can't it?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. The number can vary based on situational factors. You add 1 if the range to the target is over 16 inches or 40 centimeters. You add 1 if the target is concealed, or 2 if the unit is both concealed and has gone to ground, i.e. they didn't move or shoot in their last turn. And finally, you add 1 if the shooting team moved and is out of command. And of course, special rules like my stabilizer rule can also change the target number. So I picked the team in the open as the target. It's within 16 inches or 40 centimeters and it's not concealed, so there are no penalties there. My stationary M4 Sherman will hit on 4 or more, while the moving one will hit on 5 or more because of its stabilizer rule. If I targeted the Panzer concealed over there, that neither moved nor shot last turn, I would need to add 2 to that score I needed to hit. So I would have to roll a 6 to get a hit with the stationary tank, or a 7 with the moving one to hit it. Good thing I picked the one in the open as the target.
Okay, so you need to roll a 4 or higher with the stationary tank and a 5 or higher with the moving tank. So let's see what you get.
Right, so I roll my dice. 2 for this tank that are hitting on 4s. There, I got 2 hits. And 2 for this tank hitting on 5. And that's another 1. So 3 hits.
So you got 3 hits. What happens now? Are they all on this one tank?
Well, now I assign my hits. The first hit has to go on the target Panzer, so that Panzer IV in the middle gets it. The remaining hits must be spread out as evenly as possible amongst all the valid targets within 6 inches or 15 centimeters of the target. The Panzer IV behind the wall is a valid target and it's close enough, so it gets the second hit. The Panzer IV in the wood isn't a valid target because it's not in line of sight, so it can't be hit. Since all the valid targets now have a hit, we repeat the process with the remaining 1 hit. So the final hit goes on the targeted Panzer IV, giving it 2 hits.
So as the shooting player, you get to decide who gets hit.
That is right, but the target player can attempt to swap hits about if they really need to protect a particular team. In this case, if your unit leader's tank had a bigger gun or something like that, you might want the other one to take the second hit. In that case, you would roll a die, and on a 3+, you can swap the hits between 2 valid targets. In this case, there's not much point, because even if I do destroy your unit leader, you can simply nominate a new unit leader.
All right, so that makes sense. And that's the fundamentals of shooting and assigning hits. So next up, we'll explain how I'm going to roll for saves, reassign hits, and try out the mistaken target rule.